Before that winter, I loved how snow blanketed the world, bringing peace and silence. As a child, I eagerly awaited the first snowfall, imagining the adventures to come. Even as an adult, I found comfort in the cold and how it slowed life down. But this particular January changed my perspective. Recently, my marriage had hit a rough patch with cracks I'd been ignoring. We were still trying, but that January tested our resilience. Winters are always tough where we live, but this one was different. For 2 weeks, the sky stayed gray, with snow barely accumulating. By mid-Mon, a big storm was forecasted, and everyone, including us, prepared to be snowed in. Linda and I had a date planned for the 15th, but the snow kept falling, canceling work and shutting down the city. Instead of going out, we stayed home in cozy clothes while the kids tested bedtime, excited for a snow day. Later, after they were asleep, I handed Linda a glass of wine. "I'm sorry, Linda. This isn't how it was supposed to go." "It's okay, Jim. It was fun looking forward to it. And I got a new dress you haven't even seen yet," she said with a smile. "You know the rule," she teased. "You don't see it until we go out." I looked at her, remembering how effortlessly stylish she was. She made her own clothes when she couldn't find exactly what she wanted, and she made many of Emma's dress-up outfits too. Linda always had a way of standing out without being flashy. I looked at the diamond on her finger and said, "Thank you for saying yes, Linda. I love you. I love you too," she replied softly. We sat in a comfortable silence. After a moment, I apologized again. "I've been on edge lately. It's not your fault. I know, Jim. I've been the same. This winter is everyone grumpy." She laughed. "But we have each other and the kids, and that's enough." Our first date at Wendy's had become a joke between us, back in college. I had no money, but Linda didn't care about fancy dates. She just wanted to spend time together. We still grab Wendy's now and then, for old time's sake. That weekend, the storm delivered 2 feet of snow and everything shut down. The kids were thrilled. No school pizza movies and playing in the snow. Linda and I loved it too. No obligations, just time together as a family, the only downside. The kids insisted on watching Frozen on repeat, and Linda still wouldn't show me the new dress. "You have to take me out in it," she teased. The real world returned Sunday evening when the plows cleared the streets. School and work were back on Monday, but the weekend left us with a warm, lasting memory. One evening, Linda got a call from Dee, her close friend. She hung up excited and told me about a plan to end the miserable month with a night out, dinner, dancing, and a hotel stay with friends. It sounded perfect. "There's just one condition," I said, looking into her eyes. "You wear that dress I haven't seen yet." "With pleasure," she whispered her smile, promising a night I wouldn't forget. The dress was blue, though I couldn't tell you exactly what shade, whatever it was. It made her blue eyes glow. The dress had long sleeves, a high neck, and a skirt below the knee, but it was far from conservative. The skirt swirled as she walked, and when she danced, it moved in a way that demanded attention. The fabric hugged her just right tight, but not too tight, highlighting her slim, feminine figure. As Linda descended the stairs, I was speechless. She smiled and gently closed my open mouth with her finger. "It's still just me," she said softly. At dinner, our group of 10 enjoyed a lively evening. Linda was the most stunning woman there, and I made sure she knew it. I touched her arm or hand every chance I got, and she returned the affection with warm smiles. We headed to the club after checking into our rooms, and Linda whispered to me, "We don't have to stay too long, do we?" I knew she was eager to get back to the room and was just as excited at the club. Linda caught a lot of attention, but she only had eyes for me when Dave asked her to dance. She politely declined, saying she wanted the night to be special for us. During the evening, Dante Romano, a well-known football player, showed up creating a buzz. To my surprise, he approached Linda and asked her to dance. I watched as she accepted, and they danced 2 slow songs together. The sight of her melting into his arms unsettled me. After they returned to the table, I asked Linda if it was time to leave for a brief moment. I saw fear in her eyes. She quickly excused herself, saying she needed to go to the restroom. Dee went with her, but only Dee returned. When Linda didn't come back after several minutes, I asked the bartender to check on her. Dee interrupted, saying she's not in the restroom. She's left the club. I scanned the bar, glanced at our table, and then down the hall toward the restrooms. Realizing the situation, I rushed outside just in time to see a Honda sedan leaving the parking lot. Inside was a large man and a dark-haired woman. They were definitely not Dante and Linda. At that moment, I heard a powerful engine start up. I turned to see a black Corvette speeding away. Instinctively, I reached for my car keys, but realized I'd left them inside. I pulled out my phone and called Linda. The first call rang until voicemail picked up. When I tried again, it went straight to voicemail. She had turned off her phone. Frustrated, I headed back inside and ran into Dee, who had been looking for me. "Dee, what's going on?" I demanded Jim. "Linda's gone. She's with Dante tonight," Dee said. The words hit me like a punch. My mind raced with images of Linda in her dress at dinner and at the club. Anger flared up, so she left me for some jock on our special night. I growled, "Jim, it's just tonight. She'll come home to you tomorrow." Dee tried to reassure me. She didn't even have the guts to tell me. She snuck out. My voice grew louder, and people started to notice. "Calm down, Jim. It's just one night. He said she loves you and always will. I couldn't hold back my bitterness, and you helped her. You kept me distracted so she could leave." Dee admitted it. "She didn't want you to embarrass yourself, but Sheck, come back and everything will be fine." "What if it's not fine? What if she can't make this right?" I shot back. "You're a good man, Jim. You'll forgive her because you know she loves you," Dee said. Trying to calm me down, I shook my head angry and disgusted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So if Dante had picked you, you'd have done the same?" I asked bitterly. Dee has hesitated but didn't deny it. "No, and Dave doesn't need to know." I left Dee and went back to our table, where everyone was avoiding eye contact. They all knew what was happening. Seeing the empty seat next to mine, the reality of what Linda had done hit me hard. I grabbed my jacket and keys, choking back tears, and turned to leave, just as I did. Dee and her husband Dave blocked my path. "What are you doing, Jim?" Dee asked. "I'm leaving. I can't stay here," I said coldly. "Come on, Jim. You two will get through this." Dave said I glared at him. Why shouldn't I divorce her? We agreed a long time ago. Once and done. "Jim, think of your kids," Jane said, trying to intervene. I shot back. "Is that what Linda's thinking about right now?" Jane tried to reason with me. "Jim, what if a supermodel picked you tonight? Can you honestly say you wouldn't be tempted?" "Yes, I'd be tempted, but I wouldn't do it. I have a wife, at least I did until tonight," I said, looking at her coldly. Dave then chimed in, saying I was overreacting, which pushed me over the edge. I got in his face, warning him to back off, and shoved him back into his chair. The room went silent as I threw down a 20 on the table that covers my tab. You can cover hers too. Then, without another word, I left. I stormed out of the club, my mind spinning as I walked back to the hotel. What was supposed to be a joyful night had turned into one of the darkest moments of my life. Linda should have been beside me, holding my arm, laughing with our friends. But instead, I was alone. I took the elevator to our room. Memories of happier times in similar hotel elevators. Flooding back inside, I saw the remnants of what should have been a special night. Chocolates on the pillows and a new blue lingerie set laid out on the bed. I held the delicate fabric, imagining Linda in it. But the reality hit me hard. She wasn't coming back tonight. I broke down, realizing my wife was with someone else. After what felt like hours, I woke up in the same position, still clutching the lingerie, my mind racing. I packed up both our things, ate the chocolates, threw the lingerie in the trash. It was meaningless. Now I checked out of the hotel and drove home, overwhelmed by pain and anger. On the drive, I realized I'd been reacting all night, waiting for Linda to stop Dante, trying to chase them down, doing nothing to take control of the situation. This wasn't me. I was always the one in charge, the one solving problems. I decided it was time to stop reacting and start acting. I turned the car around and headed back to the club. There, I asked the bartender about Dante learning. He regularly preyed on married women. Frustrated, I was about to leave when a woman at the bar gave me a lead. Dante lived in a big gray house near Meadowbrook Park. I drove around the area until I found the house, a large mansion with a black Corvette parked out front. I approached the door and rang the bell. Dante answered in a bathrobe, clearly annoyed to see me. "I'm here for Linda," I said coldly. "Check, not here." He lied, trying to shut the door. I didn't back down. "Let me talk to her or I'll call the police. We both know you don't want that kind of trouble." Reluctantly, he let Linda come to the door. She stood there in a robe, surprised to see me. "What are you doing here, Jim?" she asked. "I'm here to bring you home." "Letton, leave now and we can deal with this privately." I pleaded, but Linda refused. "I'm staying the night with Dante. He'll take me home tomorrow." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I warned her that her actions would have serious consequences, but she remained indifferent. "Go home, Jim Weck. Talk tomorrow," she said, dismissing me. I left knowing things would never be the same. Again, she stepped back inside the mansion and slammed the door, shutting me out of her life as completely as she had closed the door. I stood there for a moment, numb, then walked to the back of my car, opened the trunk, and calmly narrated into my phone. "I'm taking out my emergency bag and cutting the valve stems on all 4 tires of Mr. Romano's Corvette. This should cost no more than $100 to repair." After finishing, I left a $500 check under the windshield. Wiper then called emergency. "There's someone vandalizing Dante Romano's car." I reported, giving the address. I wasn't done. I grabbed a lug wrench from the trunk and continued speaking into my phone. "Now I'm breaking the driver's side window. The replacement should cost less than $200. I smashed the window, setting off the alarm. Within minutes, Dante came storming out of the house, cursing and threatening me. I held up the wrench, warning him that I was prepared to defend myself. "Is it worth risking your career?" I asked. He stopped in his tracks, confused and angry. As the police arrived, I dropped the wrench and raised my hands. The officer separated us, and I admitted to the vandalism. The female officer cuffed me, whispering that she was sorry, but had no choice. I asked her to note the check. Under the windshield, Linda stood off to the side, watching the officer pick up the check. As I was loaded into the patrol car, I caught a glimpse of Romano tearing the check in, half a smug look on his face. At the police station, I made my one call to the local newspaper, offering them a story about Dante Romano. Then I spent the night in a holding cell, dozing off among other detainees. The next morning, I was released, greeted by my lawyer, Derek, over coffee. I told him everything. By the time I finished, he suggested starting divorce proceedings. I agreed. Derek dropped me off at my car just in time to see Romano's Corvette being towed away. I drove home expecting Linda to be there, but the house was empty. I showered, changed, and fell asleep on the couch. 2 hours later, I woke to the sound of the front door. "Jim, I'm home." Linda called, sounding like nothing had changed. She looked exactly the same, wearing the blue dress from the night before, as if nothing had happened. She launched into accusations, blaming me for the night's events. "Dante could have eliminated you, Jim." "What were you thinking?" I replied coldly. "Are you proud of yourself, Linda? How will your parents feel when they find out?" She tried to reassure me, claiming nothing had changed between us, that her love for me was the same as ever. But I couldn't believe her. If that's true, then I guess we never had what I thought we did. Linda's face fell. She went upstairs, and when she came back down, dressed in sweats, she asked about the lingerie she had left on the bed. I threw it in the trash. I said, "Just like you threw away our night." She replied sadly, trying to convince me she had planned to make things right. But it was too late. I asked, "Was it everything you expected?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Linda met. My eyes looked worried. "Jim, I know you have questions and I'll answer them honestly. But are you sure you want to hear it? I don't want to hurt you more. It's a bit late to worry about hurting me now, isn't it?" She winced. "I know. But telling you might make it harder for us to move forward. Can't we focus on the future instead of letting one night ruin everything? That's something you should have thought about." "Last night," I replied. I pointed to a vase on the mantel. "How many times would I have to throw that for it to shatter? Even if you could put it back together. It's never be the same, right, Jim? I love that vase, but I can live without it. I can't live without our marriage. What we've built is stronger than one mistake. I know you're hurt, but I believe you love me enough to get past this. Until last night, I thought you loved me enough not to cheat. I guess we were both wrong." Linda slumped in her chair. "Was the night with him everything you expected?" "Dante isn't an a-hole, Jim. He's a good man. Any guy who takes a woman away from her husband to sleep with her is an a-hole." I shot back. "He didn't take me from you then." "Where were you last night?" "Okay, he took me for the night. But I'm here now, and I'll stay with you forever." "So you're like a toy he played with and returned. What if the next celebrity comes along another night alone for me?" "No, I'm here because I love you, because this is our home." "If he asked you to stay longer, would you still be here?" Linda blushed. "You're right, but he was kind and respectful. I wish you wouldn't call him that." "Oh, I should thank him for treating you nicely like a free hooker." I was standing now, angry. She shrank back. I sat down, trying to calm myself. "All right. Was it everything you expected?" "I asked again more," she said, meeting my eyes with sympathy. I sighed. "How did it start?" She explained how Dante asked her to dance, and though she didn't expect it, she couldn't resist. She thought it would just be a couple of dances, but after the second dance, she felt something more. I didn't decide to do it. I just knew I would. She admitted her words hit me hard, but I stayed quiet. As she continued, he told me to meet him by the back door. I appreciated that he didn't rub it in your face. I thought you were eager to be with me after dancing. I didn't realize you were eager to leave me. I said bitterly, I wasn't leaving you. It was just one night, like running an errand. I knew I'd come back running an errand. Really sleeping with him was like going to the store. She flinched. No, but I was never leaving you. I asked if she would have stayed if I cut in. She looked me in the eye. No, her answer cut deep. Do I mean so little to you? No, Jim, you mean the world to me. Your actions say otherwise. From the moment he approached, I meant nothing. I checked the clock. I'll get the kids help settle them. Then I'm going out. I can't deal with this right now, Jim. I didn't do this to hurt you. Please don't do anything that makes it harder for us to stay together. You already made it hard enough. Think of Emma and Tommy. She pleaded you didn't think of them. Last night I snapped before I left. I told her to write down what happened. I don't need details of what you did, but I need to know what you were thinking. I can't stand to look at you right now. I'll do whatever you ask. But how can I make it up to you if you're not here? She asked. Not until you show me a clean STD test. Linda blushed. Must you embarrass me? Dante's an athlete. He has to be clean. Did you ask him? No, you didn't. I grabbed my coat and left, disgusted that she hadn't even considered the risk. When I picked up the kids, they ran to me, shouting, "Daddy," and filled the car ride with excited chatter. It was loud, chaotic, and exactly what I needed. Back home, the kids repeated the same excitement with Linda, while I unpacked their bags and packed my own. After supper and story time, we tucked them in. As I kissed them goodnight, I promised myself that no matter what, I would always do right by them. Later that evening, Linda approached me cautiously. Jim, are you sure you want me to write it all down? Do you really want to read it and feel the pain again? Later, exhausted, I replied, I never wanted this, but you did it anyway. Obviously, what I want doesn't matter to you anymore. I don't want to read it, but I need to understand what happened to make decisions going forward. She reached out to touch me, but I stepped back. Her hand dropped and her face went pale. I'll do what you asked. I'll even mark the parts that might hurt you the most so you can skip them if you want. I nodded, picked up my bag and said, I'll see you tomorrow after dinner. I love you, Jim. You know I used to believe that. As I walked out, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but I answered. Hello. Hi, this is Janet Norton from the Sentinel. Do you have a moment to talk about your incident with Dante Romano? Over the next half hour, I shared the story with her, answering her questions. By then, I had told the story enough that I could do it without feeling the crushing sadness. Janet said she'd write it up for the next day's paper and asked if she could contact me with more questions. I agreed. Afterward, I checked into a cheap hotel halfway between home and work. I grabbed a few beers at a small local bar but barely registered anything around me. My life, as I had envisioned it, felt shattered. I knew I had to focus on the kids. They needed stability and a home where they could grow. That was non-negotiable. But Linda, she seemed to think everything would go back to normal once I got over it. But I knew things would never be the same. Linda and I over? I didn't have an answer yet. But the thought of our kids being shuffled between two homes was unbearable. We had to figure something out for their sake. The next evening, I returned home to our usual chaotic greeting from the kids. Linda greeted me with a smile. but I held out my hand. "Don't touch me until you give me what I asked for." After the kids were in bed, she handed me a stack of handwritten pages. "I spent a lot of time on this, Jim. I've tried to answer everything honestly. I know it will hurt, and I cried while writing it. But I won't lie to you." She tentatively placed the papers in my hand. "Good night, Jim. I love you." She tried to kiss me, but I held up my hand, and she left. I stared at the pages, appreciating her familiar handwriting. It reminded me of the person I thought she was. I sighed and began to read. "Dear Jim, when you left, you said you didn't understand what I meant. When I said I love you, I was stunned. I think you meant that if I truly loved you, I wouldn't have done what I did, and I would have agreed with you right up until Dante came to our table. Then somehow everything changed. I want you to know that my love for you hasn't changed. Even though I know my actions hurt you deeply, I didn't cheat on you to hurt or humiliate you. I didn't do it out of revenge. I'm trying to be honest because you deserve the truth, even if it hurts. When Dante took me in his arms, I felt overwhelmed. His size and strength made me feel small and powerless, though he never forced me. It wasn't as if I had no choices, but it felt like everything had already been decided from that first slow dance. I knew I was his for the night, and I didn't resist. I just went along with it. Did I like that feeling at the time? Yes. Now I hate that I gave up control so easily, and to someone I knew didn't care about me. Would it have been the same with any other big assertive man? I don't think so. You know Paul is big and strong, but I never felt anything with him like I did with Dante. It was just Dante. When I signaled Dee to take me to the restroom, she already knew what was going on. She said Dante wanted the only girl who didn't chase him and told me I was lucky. She promised to keep you distracted long enough for me to get away and reminded me to have fun. Then I went outside and Dante was there with my coat. I don't know how he got it without the ticket. Celebrity perks, I guess. When he helped me into my coat and touched my shoulders, I felt overwhelmed. Just like on the dance floor. He drove me to his house, put on soft music, and we danced in his living room. I think he wanted to show he was a gentleman by not rushing me to bed, which I appreciated. We kissed as we danced, and he was completely in control. After a while, he carried me to his bedroom and laid me on the bed. He undressed me slowly, almost reverently. And I've never been so aroused in my life. I don't know how long we had sex. It felt like forever, and it was everything I wanted. At one point I thought about texting you to say I was safe and loved you, but I was too tired. I just fell asleep. Then I woke up to someone pounding on the door. I didn't know it was you. When I saw you in the doorway, I was shocked. I hoped Dante would make you leave. But when he told me to talk to you, I didn't know what to say. So I just told you to go home. Afterward, I was sobbing, and Dante comforted me. We went back to bed, and he held me until I fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I heard the alarm go off and Dante shouting. He somehow knew it was you. By the time I got to the door, I was terrified. I thought something terrible would happen between you two. But the police arrived before it escalated. It was humiliating to give a statement and explain who I was and why I was there. The officer judged me, Jim, and it wasn't fair. Then they arrested you, and I cried for the next 20 minutes in Dante's living room. How could something that started so beautifully go so wrong? I woke up in Dante's arms again. Even then, I felt the same pull toward him. We had sex again, and then he made me breakfast. It wasn't as good as yours, but after everything, I would have eaten anything. Then we were together one last time, and I showered. After that, something shifted. It felt like Dante had released me. I could think clearly again. I think you were right. He got what he wanted and didn't need me anymore. That's when I started thinking about you and how devastated you must feel. I knew it would be tough. But I don't believe our marriage is in danger. Our love is too strong. Dante dropped me off at home, thanked me for a wonderful time, and gave me a hug and a light kiss. It was over as I walked through the door. I was eager to show you how much I love you and want to spend my life with you. I still feel that way. I don't think Dante meant to hurt you. He just assumed he had a right to me. But if I'd said no, he would have moved on. He treated me well, like a lady opening doors and remembering my name. It wasn't about me. It could have been any woman. But I can't help but think well of him because of it. This part will hurt. Jim, Dante is an excellent lover, skilled from lots of practice. He knew exactly how to please me. It was the best ZX I've ever had. But it wasn't with me or for me. It was on me. You'll never have his experience, and thank God for that. You've learned how to love me over time, and that's far more valuable than the greatest sex. This is the hardest part, but it gets easier from here. Dante gave me great ZX, but it didn't have anything to do with me as an individual. I was just another woman to him, and that made it impersonal. One last thing. If Dante asked me to leave you and marry him, I'd say no even without. And Tommy, I would always choose you. Dante is an excellent lover, but you are an excellent man. I know you're upset. My love didn't stop me from giving Dante what was meant only for you. But now everything has been returned. My love for you remains unchanged. Love, Linda. I felt mentally and physically drained. How could a married woman have an affair and then come back to her husband asking him not to do the same? Is this the modern idea of marriage commitment with no loyalty? If so, what's the point of marriage at all? Well, she played her game, and now it's her turn to face the consequences. I gathered the papers, turned off the lights, and left for my hotel. I couldn't focus at work on Monday. Going through the motions until a 1 p.m. meeting with the divorce lawyer Derek had set up, I arrived at Diane Hoffman's office, unsure of what to expect. She was a no-nonsense older woman, energetic and direct. It was unsettling when she repeatedly said, "If I decide to take your case," even though I thought her representation was a given. After hearing my story, she asked, "Are you sure you're not exaggerating?" I told her everything, even showing her the recording from Romano's house. As she listened to Linda's confession and the altercation, her smile grew. "I need a copy of this recording and that confession too," she said, amazed. I had it all in writing. When she asked what I wanted out of this, I admitted I wished none of this had happened. But that's not possible. I'd like to magically be okay with it. But that's not happening either. I'm deeply hurt, and I think the best thing is to start the divorce. Diane warned me about trust issues moving forward, suggesting I hire an investigator to verify Linda's promises. She gave me a card and mentioned it could cost a few $1,000s, but it might help rebuild trust or reveal the truth. I was hesitant but understood the cold logic before leaving. Diane assured me I'll handle the legal side. You focus on your life. Later that day, I met Ron Jackson, a middle-aged, unremarkable man who sold surveillance equipment. I spent nearly $3,800 on tools to monitor Linda's calls, texts, and activities. He helped me set up an app on her phone that would record everything discreetly. I didn't feel like returning to work, so I headed home early. Linda was starting dinner, looking tense. I greeted her, but there was no hug or kiss. She knew our upcoming conversation would be tough. I spent time with the kids enjoying their excitement while Linda stewed in her own thoughts. That morning, I had secretly installed the surveillance app on her phone. It took less than 10 minutes, and she hadn't changed her password, which made it easy. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, we sat on the sofa with a glass of wine. "How was your day?" she asked. "Typical Monday?" I replied, "Tired. I'm sorry," she said softly. Mine wasn't too bad. It was nice to think about something other than everything. I couldn't hide the sharpness in my voice. I wish I could say the same. Linda flinched, then added, "Dee called this afternoon." "What did she want?" "She's not as bad as you think. She asked about you first before Dante. She said she's sorry for your pain, but she's sure it'll get better and be just a bump in the road." "That shows how much she knows," I said coldly. We sat in silence for a while, looking and acting like we always did, just another night at home. But something had shifted. There was a distance between us that hadn't been there before, and I could tell Linda felt it too. "Do you have any questions about what I wrote?" Linda asked. I shook my head, unsure where to begin. "I was looking for something in your letter, but it wasn't there." Her body tensed. "What's that any sign that you understand what I have to get past if we're going to stay together?" She shuddered. "Do you want to talk about that now? Or are you too tired?" "You need to know, but it doesn't have to be tonight. The sooner we talk, the sooner you can start healing." "All right," I said, gathering my thoughts. "Let's imagine this was our first date and you left with another man, spent the night with him and came back the next morning. If that happened, would there have been a second date? But Jim, it was Dante. Why does that matter? You still chose him over me. If it were our first date, I'd never call you again. But after almost 10 years of marriage, how am I supposed to move past it, Jim? I didn't choose him over you, the hell you didn't, for the rest of my life. I'll have to know. I'm only your first choice when a better option isn't available?" Linda looked horrified. "No, Jim. You've always been my first choice. One night doesn't change that. One night did change it. You chose him from the moment he asked you to dance until he was done with you. How can I convince you that's not true? You can't, because it is. You made choices every step of the way, signaling Dee, telling her to cover for you walking toward him. You chose him over me every time." Linda was quiet, then almost whispered, "Maybe I just don't want it to be true. I don't want to believe I'm the kind of person who could do that, even though my friends think it's okay. But that's not what's in my heart. A week ago, we knew everything about each other's hearts. Now I don't even know what to believe." She sighed. "I know I hurt you, but wounds heal over time, don't they? This doesn't have to affect our whole future. You're right. It'll hurt less eventually, but this changed everything. You broke the trust I had in you and in our marriage. Things I thought would always be private between us are gone. What's left to count on?" She couldn't answer, just sighed. "I haven't changed, Jim. I'm still just me, I know, and I haven't changed either. But what you did Friday night changed us." Linda was quiet for a long time. "I know this is hard, and I know I've hurt you deeply, but you always find a way. Through difficult things, you'll find a way through this too," I sighed. "What if the man you married died that night or the next morning? She stood tall, eyes full of sadness and determination. If he did, I'd know, because I'd have died too. But I don't believe it. Not for a moment. I grabbed my coat and headed to the door. Maybe you're right, but I'm still struggling tonight. I'm going back to my hotel. As I left, it hit me how unfair this was. She had made the choice, had the night she wanted, and all our friends thought it was fine. Meanwhile, my life was a wreck, and somehow I was the one left to find a way forward. Later that night, I got a call from Derek. "Hey man, did you know the Sentinel ran your story? Romano and your wife are getting dragged through the mud." I hadn't thought about it since talking to the reporter, so I stopped by a store and grabbed the paper. Sure enough, there was a story complete, with pictures of Romano's shattered Corvette window. The article dove into his career endorsements and his contract negotiations. And while it wasn't written as fact, it was clear they were pushing the scandal. For the next couple of hours, I kept getting phone calls from friends about the newspaper article. Eventually, I stopped answering and let them go to voicemail. When I got back to my hotel and checked the messages, one stood out. It was from Doug Coffey, the host of Coffee in the Morning, a local sports talk radio show. "Jim," he said, "I saw the article and wanted to know if you'd call into our show tomorrow morning. Our peak audience is between, and if you can call at, we'll see about getting you on air." He gave the producer's name and number a little before I got a notification I hadn't seen before when I checked. It was a message through the app I'd installed on Linda's phone. "Dear Linda," the message read, "I was sorry not to see you at Morrison's last night. I hope you aren't ill. I remember dancing with you and everything that followed very fondly. I'd like to get together again soon. I'll call you Dante." The AOL had texted my wife. This meant she gave him her number. What happened to? It's over, one and done. Why would she give him her number if she didn't plan to stay in touch? I anxiously waited to see if she'd respond, but thankfully she didn't. Exhausted, I finally fell asleep. But my dreams were filled with torment. During the day, I could distract myself, but at night I was defenseless. I relived everything that happened at Morrison's, imagining Linda's time with Dante in vivid detail. Thanks to her letter, I saw her give herself to him, willingly and in ways she'd never done with me. She'd said it was the best sex she'd ever had, and that's what haunted my dreams. Night after night, I woke up sweating, sometimes crying, only to fall back asleep or even continue the nightmare. Linda wasn't helping either. While she felt bad for hurting me and damaging our marriage, it was clear she didn't regret being with Dante, and thanks to his text, I suspected it wasn't over. How could I trust her? That night at the club, I thought our marriage was at its strongest. But Linda let Dante sweep her off her feet without a second thought for me. Even when I stood at his porch, she still turned me away. She shut the door on me, on our love, on our marriage. These thoughts plagued me until Tuesday morning when I woke up before dawn. Grateful to escape my nightmares, I remembered I had to call the radio show. So I got dressed and prepared to tell my story. As usual, I listened to Coffee in the Morning on my phone while I shaved and showered. The discussion was focused on the team's performance, with some criticism of Dante's play, but nothing too harsh at. I called in. The producer reminded me to stick to the facts and avoid getting too emotional, then put me on hold. When Dan Coffey finally brought me on, I felt my nerves rise. "So let's bring in Jim Lewis," Dan said. "Jim, you're not a sports analyst, right?" "No, just a fan. Like everyone else," I replied. "But you saw Dante on Friday night, and you've got some insight into what went down over the weekend, correct?" "Yes, you could say that Dante and I had some words, and that might have affected his game. On Sunday, I walked the audience through the events at Morrison's, including my arrest. Dan kept me on track, and by the end of my 10-minute recount, my story was out. Callers then flooded the lines, some tearing into Dante for letting his personal life affect his performance, while a few die-hard fans tried to defend him. But they were quickly drowned out. Dan kept me on for another 40 minutes as callers continued to vent their anger at Dante. Toward the end of the show, Dan revealed that the team's VP of Public Affairs and Dante's agent had requested to come on the show the next day to set the record straight. Dan asked if I'd be willing to call in afterward to respond. It was clear. Dan saw this as a win-win situation for him. Either the team cleared Dante's name or my story would dominate. Either way, he'd get great radio. After the show, Art, the producer, called again now, treating me like an old friend. He was floored when I told him I had recorded the whole incident at Dante's house. He asked if I could send the recording over so they could use it on air. I agreed, but my phone was blowing up with more messages from Linda's phone. It was hard to believe how much time she spent texting. Reviewing all her conversations felt overwhelming, so I decided to wait until lunchtime to tackle it. But before I could get back to work, I heard the familiar chirp again. I checked, and it was another message from Dante. "Hi, Linda. It's Dante. I'd really like to see you again. Is this a good number to call? Let's set something up." 20 minutes later, another message. "Hi, Linda." Dante again. "I really feel we have something special. I loved what we did, and I'd like to do it again and more." I felt my heart racing, unlike before. I didn't feel relieved that she hadn't responded. Instead, I felt like I was under attack. I was trying to get control of myself when my assistant knocked on my door saying my boss wanted to see me. Since I had spent so much time at the radio station, I arrived at work over an hour late, expecting the worst. I peeked into my boss's office, bracing for a stern look. Instead, I was greeted with a smirk. "Come in, Jim. Sit down." "I want to talk to you," he said, motioning to a chair. I sat preparing for the conversation. "I heard you on Case Port this morning while driving to work. Hell, half the company heard you." He chuckled. "I just want to say, I'm sorry about what's happened. You should have told me what was going on Monday." "Well, Paul," I replied. I was still in shock, and honestly, it's humiliating when your wife does something like that with a celebrity. I'm not sure I've even processed it yet. He nodded in understanding. "I know you'll keep up the great work, but if you need time off, let me know. I'll cover for you." I was relieved by his supportive tone, especially since he didn't mention the radio interview as a potential issue for the company. I thanked him and headed back to my office, noticing the way my coworkers looked at me. Everyone knew the rest of the day the atmosphere felt lighter. Women in the office smiled at me more warmly, and the guys would give sympathetic comments whenever I went for coffee. The sympathy was nice, but it was strange being the center of attention while knowing how broken my personal life was. Before Friday, my life had been steady. No major highs or lows. I didn't seek out excitement. Maybe that's why Linda felt free to tear it apart, knowing I'd worked to put it back together. But now I realized that my normal life had been an illusion, and there was no going back. As lunchtime rolled around, I steeled myself to sift through Linda's communications. I started with her texts, quickly realizing how much women gossip most of her work. Texts were trivial, filled with small talk about coworkers and their outfits. I decided to save those for a late-night read with a beer. The text with her friends were a bit more substantial, but for real insight, I turned to the phone calls. The first voicemail was from Jane, one of the couples we were with at Morrison's. It was brief, just asking Linda to call her back. I suspected Jane had been more involved than I knew. Then, just as I was deleting Jane's call, I got another chirp from Linda's phone. She had texted Dante. "Hi, Dante. Thanks for the texts. I'm in a meeting with my boss right now, but can I call you in 30 minutes? I was worried you'd ignore Muir call whenever he replied. Great talk to you." "Soon," she sent back. I held my breath reading their exchange, hoping it was nothing. It wasn't earth-shattering, but it certainly wasn't good. Was she just going to tell him to stop contacting her? I would find out soon enough. I decided to take a quick break, visiting the restroom copier and grabbing some coffee. When I returned to my desk, I began deleting more of Linda's mundane calls from vendors and coworkers. Then one call stood out. "Hello, Dante. Is that you?" Linda's voice was soft and eager. "Of course, Linda, I miss you." "Babe," Dante replied, "I miss you too. I can't get you out of my mind, but we need to be careful. Jim can't find out. I'm talking to you." "Don't worry. It's not you he's after, it's me. He's making a big deal of this. He even went to the newspaper and did a radio show this morning, trying to make me look bad. No, Jim wouldn't do that. He was just here last night having dinner with us. He didn't say anything about it. Well, he did, and people are getting upset. You need to talk to him and get him to back off before he digs himself into a hole." "I'll talk to him, Dante, but this isn't going the way I thought it would. I figured Jim would be mad for a bit, and then we'd get back to normal. But this time feels different. I don't know why you're making this so hard. We had something special, didn't we? You said. I made you feel things. No one else did, not even him. Yes, but Jim is a good husband and a great father. I feel safe with him, with you. It's exciting. But you've said you've never been faithful. How can I give up Jim for you if I can't trust that you'll stay but isn't? It's worth the risk. I can't risk my kids' future. I love you, but I need stability for them. Just give me more time, Linda. We'll figure it out. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I need to deal with Jim tonight." "Okay, babe. Love you, me too," she said softly. Hearing those words drained all hope from me. I sat staring at my computer, realizing Diane had been right. Trust, but verify. But now, with my worst fears confirmed, I didn't know what to do. The rest of the day was an emotional roller coaster. Sympathy from coworkers mixed with the crushing knowledge of Linda's continued connection with Dante. By the end of the workday, my assistant Karen came in with a concerned look. "Hey, boss, you've seemed off today. Anything I can do to help?" she asked gently. I gave her a polite response, thanking her, but insisting I would work through it. She nodded, unconvinced but mollified. Later, when I arrived home for dinner, the atmosphere was off. The kids were in the family room watching Frozen again, while Linda hovered over the stove. "Smells good," I said, trying to sound normal. "Dinner will be ready in about 20 minutes. The kids would love to spend some time with you." She replied coldly, clearly avoiding me. Dinner was strange. The kids were chatty, but Linda was quiet, barely looking at me. Every attempt to engage her was met with short, clipped replies. She was angry, but trying to keep it from coming out in front of the kids after dinner. I offered to wash the dishes, but Linda told me to help get the kids ready for bed instead. Once Tommy was asleep and Emma was reading in her room, Linda sat down at the kitchen table with her arms crossed. It was clear she wanted to talk. "I can't believe you did that," she said angrily. "How could you be so callous and not consider my feelings?" "What exactly are you referring to?" I asked, though I had a feeling she meant the newspaper article or the radio interview. I know you're mad at me, but to say such mean things about Dante publicly, you're messing with his career. What about our friends, my parents and my coworkers? What do they think of me now? Her voice grew louder with each sentence. If Dante was worried about his career, maybe he shouldn't have messed around with married women. I replied calmly, and as for what people think of you, they see you for what you are. A free hooker. I gave you the chance to handle this privately, but you chose to stay with Dante. Life is the sum of our choices, and with actions come consequences. Even someone as arrogant as Dante should know that Dante is. Furious with you, Jim, she snapped. You have no idea what he's capable of. He's rich, influential, and well-connected. You don't even know the kinds of people he's friends with. So when did you talk to him? I asked, staying calm but firm. Her anger briefly flickered into guilt before returning. He called me at work. How did he know where you work? He didn't. He called my cell phone, she admitted quietly. And how did he get your number? I gave it to him, she whispered. When did you give it to him? When he brought me home Saturday morning, she said, almost pleading. And why would you give him your number if you weren't planning to see him again, as you claimed? I wasn't thinking when he asked. She stammered. Well, the next time you talk to him, let him know it's only going to get worse from here. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. As for your other problems, we'll deal with them as they come. I need to go home now. I've got a busy day tomorrow. I said, heading for the door, but this is your home, Jim. Linda said hesitantly. I'm not so sure, Linda. We'll see. I grabbed my backpack and left my visit too. Ron was looking smarter by the minute my laptop had been downloading the recordings from the phones and cameras during our conversation. I just needed time to check them out. But it would have to wait. It was past midnight when I got to my hotel. After a few hours of restless sleep filled with nightmares, I woke up Wednesday morning too anxious to go back to sleep. I got up, showered, and I was on my way to the radio station. Once there, Arctic explained the setup. Romano's agent and public affairs rep would be in the main studio with Dan, while I would watch from an adjacent studio behind a glass window unseen by them at. I received a text from Linda. Jim, I know where you are and what you're doing. Please don't do this. Think of me. Think of our family. Let it go, please. I stared at the message. Clearly, Dante had tipped her off, shaking my head. I turned off my phone at. Dan started the show with news commercials, and then an intro. Yesterday, we heard the story of Jim Lewis, an average guy whose wife was taken by superstar Dante Romano, leaving him humiliated and alone. But today, our guests claim it's all just the ramblings of a disgruntled man going through a messy divorce. Great, I muttered. Were they setting me up? But Art gave me a reassuring gesture, so I sat back and watched the interview unfold. Romano's team spun the story. Dante didn't know Linda was married. He only took her home to make sure she was safe, and I had. Overreacted, vandalizing his car, in a fit of rage. They portrayed Dante as the good guy, even offering to help me get my life together. As the hour ended, Dan teased my upcoming segment, and the men glanced at me. Now, visibly irritated, Art walked them out, and the text began prepping for my part of the show. Rye, one of the texts explained. We pulled clips from your recording and theirs. Dan will ask you questions, and I'll handle the audio. Just focus on speaking clearly. Ray added, I stayed up all night working on this because I think you were screwed over. Most guys are afraid this could happen to them, but this is real. I'll make sure you don't get screwed again." Dan's intro kicked in, and we were live. The show went smoothly. Dan played clips from Romano's team, followed by my recordings that contradicted their claims. When they said Dante didn't know Linda was married, we played a clip of him talking about her. When they said she wasn't at his house, I explained what actually happened, and Dan played more audio, proving my side of the story. It was a perfect choreographed takedown of their lies. After dinner, I offered to do the dishes. But Linda told me to help with the kids' baths and bedtime routine once Tommy was asleep and Emma was reading. Linda sat down at the kitchen table with her arms crossed. It was a clear signal that she wanted to talk. "I can't believe you did that," she said, her voice tight with anger. "How could you act so thoughtlessly without caring about my feelings?" "What are you talking about?" I asked calmly, suspecting she was upset about the newspaper article or radio interview. "I know you're mad at me, but publicly humiliating Dante. You know you're messing with his career, right? And what about our friends, my parents, my co-workers? What do they think of me?" Now, her voice rose with every sentence. If Dante was concerned about his career, maybe he should have thought about that before getting involved with a married woman. I replied evenly. "And as for what people think of you, they see you for what you are a cheap, a free hooker. I gave you the chance to handle this privately, but you chose Dante. Our choices have consequences. Even someone as arrogant as Dante should know that Dante is furious with you." "Jim," she spat, "you don't know what he's capable of. He's rich, influential, and connected. You're messing with powerful people you don't even know." "So when did you talk to him, Linda?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. Her expression shifted from anger to guilt, then back to anger. "He called me at work." "How did he know where you work?" I pressed. "He didn't," she replied. "He called my cell phone. And how did he get your number?" "I gave it to him," she whispered, almost inaudible when I asked sharply. "When he brought me home Saturday morning," she answered, her voice nearly pleading. "And why would you give him your number if you told me you were never going to see him again?" My tone grew more accusatory. She hesitated, then said I wasn't thinking. When he asked, I stood up, grabbed my jacket. "Well, next time he calls, let him know. This is just the beginning. As for your other problems, we'll deal with them as they come. I need to go home now. Busy day tomorrow," she muttered. "But this is your home, Jim." Linda said, her voice uncertain. "I'm not so sure, Linda. We'll see about that too." I grabbed my backpack and left. As I walked away, I thought about my visit to Ron. It was proving to be a smarter move by the minute my laptop had been downloading the recordings while we talked. I just need time to review them. But that would have to wait by the time I reached my hotel room. It was already past midnight. I managed only a few hours of sleep, haunted by nightmares of humiliation. On Wednesday morning, I woke up and unable to fall back asleep by. I was dressed and headed to the radio station. When I arrived, Art explained the plan I'd watch from a separate studio, while Romano's agent in public affairs, Rep, sat with Dan in the main studio at my phone, buzzed with a text from Linda. "Jim, I know where you are and what you're doing. Please don't do this. Think of me. Think of our family. Let it go, please." I stared at the message, shaking my head. Dante must have tipped her off without responding. I turned off my phone as Dan kicked off the show, introducing the guests and recapping my story from the previous day. Then he gave the floor to Romano's team, who spun a tale of misunderstandings. According to them, Dante didn't know Linda was married. He only ordered her home to make sure she was safe, and I had overreacted by vandalizing his car. As the hour ended, Dan teased my segment and the two men shot me angry looks. Art escorted them out, and I prepped for my time on Air Rye. One of the teachers explained how they'd pull audio clips from both sides to show the truth. I stayed up all night working on this because I think you got screwed. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Dan's intro kicked in, and we were live for the next half hour. Dan played clips from Romano's team, followed by my recordings, which contradicted their claims. With each clip, I provided context showing how they were lying. The whole thing was perfectly executed, and by the end, it was clear to the audience who was telling the truth. Was it embarrassing? Sure, but I had made it clear that Romano and his people were lying. The audience calls that followed were supportive of me, though many focused on how the agents had misled them. Sports fans are loyal to honesty, and they hate being played. After the show, the team in the studio cheered and congratulated me. Even Dan asked if I would call in again sometime as Art walked me out. He warned, "Be careful. Big sports is full of rich, powerful people like Romano. Stay sharp and avoid trouble." I thanked him and left feeling victorious back at work. The atmosphere was celebratory. Everyone had heard me on the radio. But reality hit when I found multiple messages from Linda on my desk and phone, all asking variations of the same question. How could you do this to me, to our children, to Dante? I felt a little guilty until I heard her concern for Dante. Really, just then, Derek called Jim. "You've got an arrangement on Monday at Don't Forget. You've been charged with vandalizing Romano's car." I remember Derek. What should I expect? Mostly just entering your plea and setting a trial date. But you admitted everything on your emergency call. So the DA might push for a tough penalty since it involves a celebrity. What if I plead guilty and explain the circumstances? That might work. I'll meet with the D and make sure we have the arresting officers for corroboration. Let's meet on Monday. After we hung up, I spent my lunch break reviewing the recordings from my house. Most of it was routine, but a call between Linda and Dee stood out. Dee advised Linda to use more pressure on me, suggesting she remind me the divorce would leave me with nothing. Linda hesitated, saying she wasn't sure she could do that. Dee encouraged her to be tougher, but Linda seemed conflicted, torn between Dante and me. The rest of my day was a blur, with the high of the radio show balanced against the low of hearing Linda's divided loyalty. By the end of the day, Corey invited me out for drinks with some of the guys. I declined, saying I had dinner with Linda and the kids, but when I texted Linda to let her know, she replied almost immediately. "I don't think tonight is a good idea. Let'n talk tomorrow." It was clear Linda still had feelings for Dante. Just then my phone chirped with a text from Linda to Dante. I stared at it, unsure what to think when. Corey passed by again. I called out, "Hey, Corey, is that invitation still open?" He smiled. "Of course we're heading to All-Star. See you there." All-Star was your typical sports bar. Large rectangular bar, high-top tables in the center, low tables around the edges, and booths lining the walls. Flat-screen TVs covered the walls, especially around the bar. As soon as I walked in, I spotted Corey waving from a high-top table, joined by Matthew, Sarah, and Jacob work friends. Corey and Matthew were single. Jacob was fresh off his honeymoon, and Sarah, like me, was married with 2 kids. When I sat down, the group was unusually quiet, waiting for me to set the tone for the evening. I smiled, and Corey immediately broke the tension with a laugh, getting everyone else to relax and join in. "Damn," Jim Corey said, still chuckling. We haven't had this much excitement at work in forever." After ordering a drink, the group dove into my story. Since they had all heard the last part of my radio interview, I kept things light, focusing on the more humorous moments which got some laughs, especially the "sucks to be you" comment. The bar was getting crowded and the drinks were flowing, making me feel that coming here was a good decision. I was about to order another drink when I looked up and found myself staring into the bluest eyes I'd ever seen. "Hi, I'm Ashley. Are you Jim Lewis?" I'd never seen her before and was surprised she knew my name. Tall, blonde, and beautiful Ashley looked like a runway model crossed with the girl next door. "Yes, have we met?" I asked, confused. "Oh no, but you've changed my life." Her words hit me hard. She quickly explained until 2 days ago I was Dante Romano's fiancé. The shock made me focus. Instantly she told me how she and Dante had been planning to marry. But then everything changed when my story came out. Despite her smile, I could see the pain in her eyes. Ashley invited us to join her and her girlfriend friends at a big table by the window. Corey and Matthew were clearly eager, but it was up to me to decide for the group. I agreed, and we moved to the new table where we met Ashley's friends Jessica, Alexis, and Nicole, all cheerleaders. The conversation took off quickly, but this serious topic of Dante and Linda never really came up. Then the girls' attention shifted to the front door, where a striking woman entered. Petite and with Mediterranean features. She had dark hair that framed her face like a lion man. I stood up instinctively as she approached everyone. "This is Ellen, our assistant coach," Ashley announced. Before turning to me and Ellen, "This is Jim Lewis." Ellen was stunning, beyond beautiful, almost like a work of art. As we shook hands, I could see both excitement and sadness in her eyes. After we sat down, I asked why they all seemed to recognize me. Ellen explained that my story had shaken their entire team. Most athletes are used to getting whatever they want, and Dante is no different. He's a star, and the team always turned a blind eye to his behavior, even when he started dating Ashley, which was against the rules. But you stood up to him in a way no one expected, and now the whole team is feeling the heat. Ellen revealed that management had called a meeting that day to address the bad press surrounding Dante, specifically mentioning my name. They'd implemented a zero-tolerance policy for player behavior, and Dante was now a pariah in the locker room. Her words were eye-opening. I've been so focused on my own problems that I hadn't realized the broader impact of my actions. As the night wore on, it became clear that Ashley had dumped Dante after learning about his affair with Linda. She didn't seem devastated, more upset that it had become public knowledge. Corey was trying to fill the void left by Dante, and Ashley seemed to enjoy the attention. By the end of the evening, the group had dwindled to just Ashley, Corey, Ellen, and me. Ellen and I spent most of the night talking one-on-one, though she resisted sharing much about herself. She seemed genuinely interested in hearing about my situation, but kept the conversation away from her personal life, possibly out of respect for her role as the cheerleader mentor. Given the late hour and sensing that Ashley and Corey weren't leaving anytime soon, Ellen turned to me and quietly said, "Jim, I don't want to intrude, but I haven't felt this comfortable with someone in a long time. I think there's more we need to talk about, but it doesn't seem like we'll get the chance tonight. Would you like to meet again?" I smiled. "I feel the same way, Ellen. There's so much I don't understand, and we haven't talked much about you yet. I'd love to meet again soon." Her face lit up. "How about lunch tomorrow?" "That sounds great. Where would you like to go? Should I pick you up?" Ellen smiled. "No, I'll meet you. How about the Madison? It's quiet and I hear the food is good. Is that okay?" I was surprised. The Madison was where our evening started the night everything fell apart. It wasn't a place I wanted to revisit. But seeing's excitement, I agreed at the Madison. "Sounds good, I'll make the reservation," Ellen said, wishing me good night. It was a little after when I left the bar and drove back to my hotel, though my conversation with Ellen had distracted me. I kept thinking about Linda's cryptic text. When nothing happened I grew suspicious and decided to drive by the house. The street was quiet and the house looked normal, dark, except for the living room light. I figured the kids were asleep. I didn't consider myself a stalker, but curiosity got the better of me. I parked down the street and crept around to the back of the house, peeking into the dark kitchen and family room. Finally, I went to the porch and looked into the living room window. There was Linda sitting on the love seat with a glass of wine, calmly talking to someone out of view. I figured I should leave before getting caught. But then I noticed a shadow move on the wall. I leaned in for a better look and my blood froze. It was Dante Romano sitting in my living room holding a glass of wine. Anger and confusion hit me. How could this be happening? I hadn't received any alerts from the phone tab, so she must have called him from work. What could I do now? If I barged in, it would be obvious I'd been spying. Just then, a neighbor's gate creaked open, followed by the sound of a trash can rolling down the driveway, triggering dogs to start barking. Feeling exposed, I made a hasty retreat back to my car. Crap, crap, crap. That was all I could think. What the hell was going on? I reassured myself that everything would be recorded and I'd know the full story tomorrow. I barely slept that night, replaying the image of Linda and Dante in my head. Thoughts of Ellen also lingered. There was something about her that felt like she was holding back. The next morning I woke up early, groggy and frustrated. As I got ready, I listened to the local sports radio. Rumors of a post-season trade involving Dante Romano were being discussed, which made me wonder how Linda would react to this. This especially after what I saw the night before. I texted Linda to confirm she had left for work. "Good morning, Linda. I hope you slept well. I miss seeing you and the kids. How about dinner tomorrow night?" Her reply was cold. "What's the matter? No more crap to sling on the radio today." I responded, "Nope, tell the a-hole, he's safe today." Childish, yes, but I couldn't resist. With no reply from her, I headed to the house. Inside, everything looked normal, just the breakfast dishes in the sink. I set up my laptop to download the surveillance files, grabbed the financial, documents from my lawyer, and checked the kids' rooms. Tommy's room was its usual mess, and I smiled as I caught a faint whiff of his shampoo from his pillow. Emma's room was pristine, and I noticed a new photo of the two of us at her Halloween party, framed in a heart that brought tears to my eyes. In the master bedroom, I found my personal items stashed away, replaced by Linda's things. My clothes had been pushed to the back of the closet, replaced by outfits I didn't recognize. It was unsettling, but I couldn't make sense of it. Yet back in the kitchen, the files had finished downloading. I packed everything up and headed to my lawyer's office. Diane had things well in hand. She gave me a list of court-approved counselors and told me to pick 3. Later, back at the office, I received a call from Dee. I immediately hung up. She was the last person I wanted to talk to. A few minutes later, my friend Dave called trying to defend her, but I wasn't having it. "Sheck, no friend of mine." I snapped. I hesitated briefly, then went for it. After Linda left the club with that idiot on Friday, Dee told me something shocking. She said if Dante had picked her instead of Linda, She'd have gone with him and done the same thing Linda did to me. Dave stammered, clearly uncomfortable. But I could tell he believed me. Still, he pressed on. Jim, don't you see? You and Linda are the best of us. We look up to you both. Why do you think you're always the designated driver? It's not just about you staying sober. It's because we trust you to do the right thing. If you two can't make it, what hope do the rest of us have, Dave? If we're the best of you, then there's not much hope for your marriage. We exchanged a few more words before saying goodbye, neither of us changing the other's mind. I realized Dave needed Dee in his life, just like I needed her out of mine. After hanging up, I locked my office door and reviewed the video files from my house the night before. Ellen's text confirming our lunch came through as I watched Linda getting the kids to bed. She then spent an hour getting dolled up like she was preparing for a date. Not a good sign, I muttered right before Linda, dressed to impress, answered a call. A man's voice said, "I'm 5 out," before hanging up. Moments later, she let Dante Romano into the house. They shared some wine in the kitchen, then moved to the living room, where Linda sat on the love seat, keeping some distance from him. At least they weren't kissing, but their conversation took a disturbing turn. Romano complained about how I'd been talking to the press and the radio, making him look bad. He was worried about losing endorsement deals due to morality clauses and pressured Linda to get me to stop. Before things escalated further, I was interrupted by a knock at my office door. Karen rushed in with a client issue and I had to shift focus by noon. We had made enough progress for me to head to lunch. When I got back to my office to grab my coat, Karen looked concerned. "Sorry for barging in earlier, boss. You seemed off. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, just caught me by surprise. I've got a lunch appointment, but I'll check in when I'm back at the Madison." I spotted Ellen right away. She looked stunning, even more so than I remembered. As we settled in, our conversation flowed easily. She opened up about her tough childhood, her parents' love story, and the tragedy that struck when her father died in a car accident. Her stepfather was abusive, and her mother fell into a deep depression. Ellen's story was heartbreaking, yet she spoke with a quiet strength, just as we were bonding. My heart sank as I saw Linda storming toward our table. Her face twisted with anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" she demanded. "Who is this woman?" I tried to keep calm. "Lower your voice, Linda. She wasn't having it. You're having an affair." "This isn't an affair, it's lunch," I said, raising my voice so others could hear. "An affair is when a wife sleeps with someone who isn't her husband. You should know." Linda looked shocked, embarrassed by the onlookers. I asked Ellen to give us a moment and escorted Linda outside, where I noticed Dee sitting with friends. So Dee was the one who tipped her off. "Everyone in that restaurant now knows what you did, and they probably think you're crazy." On top of it, I said, "Go back to your office or wherever." Linda demanded to know who. Ellen was still suspicious. "Her name is Ellen, and you introduced us." I said she didn't believe me. "Well, if you hadn't spent the weekend with Dante, she wouldn't be sitting with me today. But Dee said she saw you holding her hand." Linda pressed. "She shared something painful with me, and I was consoling her." I explained, "That's what decent people do. You've always said married people shouldn't meet others alone without telling their spouse." She countered, and she was right. I had said that before. It's not as if you haven't done worse. "Recently, Linda," she snapped back. "You keep bringing up what I did. Can't you understand?" "That was different. I'm not talking about Friday." I said. Her face went pale. "What did you do last?" "Night, nothing. I was with the kids, really." I stopped by the house last night, Linda. She looked panicked. Why didn't you come in? Because you weren't alone. Her face drained of color. What did you see? Enough to know you're lying. We needed to talk, but not here. She agreed to come by after work without another word. I walked back into the restaurant, passing Du's table. I stopped, stared at her, and said, "You're a vile person. Dee, I want you out of my life completely. If I see or hear from you, I'll be forced to do something you won't like. Got it?" Which Dee looked shocked, and I slammed my fist on the table. Nod your head, Dee, do you understand? She nodded quickly, and I walked back to Ellen, who sat quietly looking out the window. That must have been awful, she said softly, turning to me with kindness in her eyes. But you handled it well. It amazed me how she thought of me first, despite being publicly insulted. It was empathy, something Linda had been missing throughout this whole mess. Ellen and I tried to pick up our conversation, but my mind kept drifting back, searching for any moment when Linda had shown true empathy during tough times. Linda was kind and confident, but empathy that had never been her strength, especially lately. We finished lunch, but the mood had shifted. We thanked each other for a nice meal and agreed to stay in touch, though no plans were made. We parted with a simple kiss on the cheek, and as I left, I thought maybe some time and space was exactly what we needed. When I returned to the office, my team greeted me with enthusiasm, happy with our recent project's success. But I needed space. I closed my office door and began reviewing the recordings from the night before. The day blurred by, and I vaguely recall Karen saying goodnight. By the time I left, it was after, and as much as I dreaded it, I knew I needed to see the kids at the house. It was quiet except for something baking in the oven and a letter from Linda on my plate. In the letter, she apologized for everything with Dante, expressed regret, and asked for a chance to rebuild our marriage. A week ago, I would have cherished that letter even 24 hours ago. I might have considered it. But after seeing the recordings, it didn't mean as much. I folded it, put it in my coat, grabbed a beer, and waited for them to come home. The evening with the kids was perfect. Playing, wrestling, and laughing. But after dinner, Linda poured us drinks, clearly ready to talk. I wasn't. I told her I was too tired and would talk tomorrow. As I left, she asked, "Don't." I even rate a kiss. I paused, gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, and walked out back at the hotel as I was getting ready for bed. I heard the familiar chirp of my phone. It was a text from DEA Linda. "So, how did he take it?" "I don't know." Linda replied he didn't stay long, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. "GK, such a crap," Dee wrote, ignoring my earlier warning. "He'll never find someone as amazing as you." "I don't know." Dee Linda responded. "He seemed distant, like someone had died. I'm not sure where his head is." "Don't worry, you're not stuck in a convent," Dee replied cryptically. After some gossip, the text ended. It was clear. Linda had shared details of her time with Dante, but was holding back the worst parts from even Dee. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I got another notification. It was a recording of Linda's call to Dante. After texting Dee, I hit play and listened. Linda flirted, and Dante reassured her, even promising to wear his football towel a certain way during the game as a signal to her. He complained that I was making things difficult, and Linda admitted she hadn't talked to me about stopping. Dante pushed her to take the next step, with him emphasizing that he could give her a better life than I ever could. Linda admitted their night together was the best ZX of her life, and that she couldn't deny the attraction. But she still saw me as the father of our children. The call ended with both of them professing their love. I woke up early the next morning, unable to shake the events of the past week. It felt impossible that this story could have a happy ending, at least for me. Determined to take control, I decided to move back home, if only to be closer to my kids and not give Linda more time with Dante. I texted Linda to let her know I was moving back that evening. Her enthusiastic response came quickly. "That's great news. Honey, the kids will be thrilled. We need to talk at the house." I set up my laptop to download the surveillance files. After listening to what Linda had said and written, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the same bed with her. I moved into Tommy's room, setting up an air mattress and organizing his toys. I cleared Linda's things from the bedroom and bathroom, moving her clothes to Emma's room and storing the extras in the garage. Linda wouldn't be happy with the changes, but I was sure she'd see it as temporary. I grabbed my laptop and headed to work, arriving only slightly late. Throughout the day, Linda texted in a good mood, eager to get back to normal and asking if I wanted something special for dinner. When I walked into the house that evening, everything felt surreal. The kids were dressed up watching TV, and Linda, dressed as if she were going out, was finishing dinner. The table was set with our best dishes. She didn't mention the new sleeping arrangements, but upstairs I noticed she had made changes. Our wedding photo was now by my side of the bed, and a glamour shot of her was facing me from the other side. Dinner was pleasant but subdued. Tommy was excited about his new room setup, while Emma wasn't happy about losing hers. I reassured them it wasn't permanent, and I noticed Linda smiling before Emma could even react. After dinner, Linda insisted on doing the dishes, which was unusual. I spent the evening with the kids, helping with their baths and reading them bedtime stories. When I returned to the living room, Linda was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine and had a beer ready for me. "Jim, I know you're tired, but we need to talk," she said. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" I asked, avoiding eye contact. Frustrated, she replied, "I just want to discuss everything you've been doing with the newspaper and radio." It was clear. Her priority was Dante. I stood up. "Nothing's planned for tonight, so it can wait. Good night." I went upstairs, leaving her stunned. That night my phone chirped with messages, undoubtedly between Linda and Dante, but I didn't care. I slept better, knowing I had frustrated their plans. The next morning, I started yard work early. When Linda called me for breakfast, I told her I'd eat. Later around, she came outside and asked if I could watch the kids while she went shopping. I agreed, happy to have more time with them. When she returned that afternoon with only a few bags, my suspicions grew later. After pretending to nap when she knocked for dinner, my phone continued to chirp with messages. I ignored them, enjoying the peace of shutting out Linda and Dante. The next morning, I decided to take the kids to the zoo. I left a note for Linda. "I thought you might be tired, so I'm taking the kids to the zoo. We'll be back by dinner. Have a great day." We spent the day enjoying the zoo, and I turned off my phone to avoid interruptions. When we returned home, the kids were asleep, and Linda was at the kitchen table. "Where have you been? Why was your phone off?" she demanded. "We were at the zoo." I didn't want to be disturbed, I said calmly. Her scowl deepened, but she dropped the subject. I told her I'd be out for dinner with Derek that evening, and she angrily reminded me we were supposed to talk. I simply replied, "I spent the whole day with my family. I'm not ready to talk to you." I left the Sunday Sentinel. On the counter, the front page read, "Romano is history. Local star traded to Salt Lake City." Linda glanced at it, showing no surprise. "That was unfair, Jim," she said coldly. "Dante didn't deserve that." I felt my blood pressure rise. A lot of people are responsible for what happened, Linda, including someone in this kitchen. I left without further discussion, pretending I had plans with Derek. In reality, I wasn't meeting him. I just didn't want to deal with Linda and accidentally reveal what I knew from the surveillance footage. That evening, I scrolled through Linda's texts and listened to a furious Romano after learning he was traded. The thought of him wooing married women while being humiliated made me laugh a little when I got home. The house was dark, except for a light in Linda's room. After quietly entering the master bedroom, Linda knocked on the door. She sat on the bed in a revealing robe, looking sad. "Is there any chance for us, Jim?" she asked, desperate. "I don't know, Linda," I replied honestly. "If you come home with me instead of staying with Mono, maybe. But now I'm not sure." She broke down, pleading for forgiveness. "I never meant for this to happen. I love you, Jim. Please tell me we can fix this." I pulled away. "It's too late now. I'm not the same person anymore. I have a hearing tomorrow and need to sleep." When I asked if she planned to attend, Linda immediately said yes, determined to do whatever it took to repair things. I simply said goodnight, Linda, and closed the door the next mo. Arning. I woke up early, ready for the hearing by am. I was out the door, stopping for gas and glancing at a newspaper with another story about Romano's downfall. I met Derek at his office near the courthouse, and he reassured me about the day's proceedings. I listened, hoping his words would calm both of us. As we entered the courthouse lobby, the deputy sheriffs were screening everyone much more intensely than airport TSA. Since both criminal and civil cases were handled here, they likely preferred dealing with troublemakers at the door rather than inside a courtroom. After clearing security, we took the elevator to the third floor. Stepping into a long hallway lined with windows on one side and dark panel walls with doors leading to various courtrooms on the other. Derek spotted a middle-aged woman in a suit and greeted her. "Bobby, I see. You knocked me here this morning," she chuckled. "Thought I'd have an easy day, but you ruined that, didn't you?" Derek excused himself to speak with her, leaving me to text Linda, letting her know I had arrived. She replied that she was at the office and to let her know when the hearing was starting. While waiting, I looked up the citation. I'd been charged with vehicle 30661. It was clear that I had violated the law by damaging Dante's car. The misdemeanor could carry up to 6 months in jail or a $1,000 fine. The jail time worried me more than the fine, and my anxiety rose. Just then, Derek returned. But the woman, Roberta Malinoff, the assistant district attorney, was gone. "Good talk was all," he said. I told him what I had found in my brief research, but he brushed it off. "Jim, you're smart, but let me handle this." He led me into an empty courtroom which looked just like the ones in movies. I took a seat in the first row behind the defendant's table, and Derek spread out his materials to claim our spot. Slowly, the room began to fill up. At the booth announced that all cell phones should be silenced. When the judge entered, everyone stood and then sat in unison. Derek whispered that my case was being pushed to the end of the docket. As expected, the next 2 hours dragged on as we waited for other cases to be handled, each one seemingly more serious than the last. I grew more nervous as the judge's patience were thinned by. The courtroom had mostly emptied, and Bobby returned with an assistant. I noticed Janet Norton, the reporter, sitting quietly in the back. But Linda was still nowhere to be seen. The judge called my case, and the clerk read out the charges against me. Malicious mischief to Dante Romano's vehicle. The judge asked both lawyers if they had spoken and believed the case could be resolved today. They both agreed, and the judge called them into his chambers. I sat alone, feeling the weight of the situation. A few minutes later, 2 police officers, likely the ones who arrested me, entered and sat down. Then, just as I was about to lose hope, Romano walked in, followed by Linda. She tried to make it seem like they weren't together, but her guilty expression said otherwise. Linda slid into the seat next to me, whispering, "Has it started?" I briefly explained what was happening and signaled for her to stay quiet. After about 15 more minutes, Derek and the prosecutor returned and the judge re-entered the courtroom. Derek signaled me to stand beside him, as the judge asked if I was ready to enter a plea. Derek confirmed we were, and the judge addressed me. He acknowledged Derek's efforts on my behalf, but had a question about restitution. He asked to see the repair estimates Derek had presented. The judge explained that the damage to the car was minimal, with estimates ranging from $88 to $348. He noted that Derek had said I had offered $500 in restitution, which Romano declined. "Is that true, Mr. Lewis?" he asked. "Yes, Your Honor," I replied. Romano immediately stood up, shouting, "That's a lie. He never offered me anything." The judge turned to Linda and asked, "Is that true, Mrs. Lewis? Did your husband offer $500 to Mr. Romano as restitution?" Linda froze, clearly caught off guard by being dragged into the proceedings. She glanced at Romano, who signaled how she should respond. Then she looked at me, but I gave her nothing. Finally, she faced the judge and said, "No, Your Honor. Jim didn't offer Dante anything." The judge pressed her again, warning her of the consequences of perjury. But Linda stood firm. "I'm sure, Your Honor, I was there the whole time, and if he had, I would have seen it." It was clear that Romano still had a hold on her. The judge then asked the prosecutor if she had witnesses, and she called Officer Maria Johnson to the stand. Officer Johnson testified that I had asked her to note the $500 check I left under the windshield wiper of Romano's car. She further explained that she had photographed the check and later saw Romano tear it up in front of Linda. With that, the judge asked for my plea and I responded, "Guilty, Your Honor." He decided to defer sentencing for a year, placing me on unsupervised probation. If I stayed out of trouble, the charge would be dismissed. Romano, furious, stood up and shouted, but the judge silenced him, making it clear that the restitution I offered was more than fair. The judge concluded by addressing Romano and Linda, accusing them of attempting to deceive the court and sentencing them both to 3 days in jail for contempt. As the courtroom emptied, a man approached Romano and Linda, serving them legal papers. Romano's fall from grace was complete. His career soon ended and Linda moved to California. After our divorce, which was finalized within months, I got custody of the kids and life slowly moved forward. I reconnected with Ellen after the divorce course, and after some time, we became serious. I proposed during a quiet moment by the lake, and to my surprise, she said yes. We married. A few months later, and slowly but surely, Ellen became a beloved part of my family. The moment I truly knew we had become a real family was when my kids Emma and Tommy thanked us for a perfect day at an amusement park, calling Ellen Mom for the first time. Later that night, as we hugged and reflected on how far we had come, Ellen smiled up at me and asked, "Do you think it's too soon to start talking about having more kids?"